Distinguished ladies and gentlemen from political parties and sector leads, my country director, and colleagues from the watch sector, as well as from the diplomatic corps. This is just to add to the context that has already been presented. So in some of the slides, I may be skipping because a lot has been said in most of them, but it is just to add to the dimension of the institutional arrangement and the importance of giving attention to climate issues within an institutional framework that will promote sustainable wash services delivery. So my presentation will highlight this, but I will emphasize on areas that have so far not been touched because a lot has been said by previous speakers. We are talking about climate change, and previous speakers have mentioned why climate change, to the fact that they are almost inseparable within the context of our time. And so my objective here is to be speaking about what are the primary climate change risks to wash infrastructure and services. Are we planning, supporting, facilitating, and building wash infrastructure that will withstand some climate threats issues such as flooding, droughts, and what have you? How resilient is the Ghana wash sector to climate change and some other objective areas? But for the first part that has already been spoken about by previous speakers, elements of climate change reflects in rising sea levels. In areas of the north where the threat is real, because of also our closeness to the Sahel, you will find manifestations of flooding. Indeed, as we speak, the 5 regions of the north are praying for rains to fall because the rains has eluded them. Farmers have gone to the farm, planted, the rains are not coming. So they are on their knees praying for rains to fall. But that is how climate change is close to us. Environmental degradation has also contributed to accelerate a lot of the issues that we're talking about. And the impacts of and severity of climate change will only deepen in the wash sector if we are paying less attention to the issues of designs of our infrastructure. And senior engineers are here. I'm happy to note that one of the senior people in this room, Engineer Kobana Japan, is well placed. Engineer Harold is also here, and many others who will tell us how, can walk us through how, in terms of engineering specifications, we can do to withstand the shocks of climate change. But how is our planning for service delivery responding to that as a country and as a sector? The next slide. The outlook is also that population growth is putting a lot of pressure on water resources, economic development, and agriculture. In fact, if you look at this first column, it is deepening our understanding of the fundamental structure of the Ghanaian economy. A lot of the areas of Ghanaian economy is structured that it is climate sensitive, agriculture, energy, even water resources. So it is important to be paying attention to this. But at the same time, the manifestations of climate change is also contributing to supply of water resources diminishing. And the hydrogeologists will tell us what is happening with underground water because of drought and all that. But most importantly, the limitations of human capacity for planning and management of the exigencies of climate change can also not be underplayed. Are our institutions well prepared in terms of staff numbers, in terms of skills, in terms of tools, equipments to work with to respond to the threat that we are faced with. But most importantly, the climate science is data-driven. It is not about too much talking without evidence. What are we doing to gather the necessary data from across the country to be able to position us? And here we have listened to the good intentions of the political parties. But integral to this is how, come 7th January, any party leading the country will resource the institutions responsible to drive this evidence generation for us to tackle climate change. But most importantly, the last two speakers touch on it, the institutional arrangements to be able to drive this agenda. I like the point around different players playing different roles, even within the state sector. Who is responsible for what? Multiple actors playing multiple roles. Roles are conflicting, and the need for coordination very critical in our drive to climate change. The next slide. To just make some conceptual clarifications, the Ministry of Sanitation, under which we are working, did a study, and it was concluded last year. They call it the Wash Resilience Study. Thankfully, it was funded by UNICEF. This is how they capture what resilience is in that report. Ability to adapt and recover effectively when exposed to unexpected changes, while maintaining consistent service levels under various stresses. And I think my country director also painted how in water aid we talked about climate change, and that does not sound different from the ministry climate resilience study that was concluded. But the key question is, how are we aligning the institutions of states to be able to deliver in terms of this beautiful report? The next slide. Again, in that same resilience study, this is the policy governance and institutional arrangement that has been proffered. Interestingly for us, EPA, Office of the President, Parliament, all has oversight. National Development Planning Commission, I talked about data. Environmental Protection Agency, which is supposed to be at the apex of driving policy. The ministries are there: Community Water and Sanitation Agency, Ghana Water Limited, Water Resources Commission. They are all important state agencies. Ghana Geological Survey, Hydrological Authority, Ministry of Communication, and below you will find MMDAs, Metropolitan, Municipal, and District Assemblies. The National Development Planning Systems Act 480 mandates them to take planning seriously. The importance of this slide I'm painting is how coordinated are these institutions? How coordinated are these institutions to ensure that when EPA is driving climate resilient agenda with a very clear policy direction, no other ministry or MDA is counteracting what EPA is doing? How are we responsive to coherent planning to avoid policy somersault? And that is the essence of this, with Parliament having oversight, which is very crucial. And that is what we also want to underscore. 261 MMDs are under Ministry of Local Government, providing critical services. How are these services reflective of climate resilience and responsiveness? How are they working with Institute of Planners? All of them are part of this governance equation. So this is the essence of this particular slide. Next. And so I have already spoken to this. How well is coordination among these institutions? How can we effectively promote resilient wash services delivery in Ghana? What is the role of Ministry of Local Government, Decentralization, and Rural Development? As we speak now, we were lucky from 2017 to be given a Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources. Honestly, for all intent and purposes, the ministry has done well. Coordination used to be a problem because we used to have sanitation sitting somewhere, hygiene sitting somewhere, but with a defined Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources, at least somehow we have a clear direction with water, sanitation, and hygiene coming together. But we still have challenges with coordination, especially with other allied ministries. We are doing well with coordinating with Ministry of Health, but in terms of WASH in healthcare facilities, which is critical to promoting maternal and child health, the coordination could be better. School WASH could be better. And MESTI, very critical. How are we coordinating with MESTI, and for that matter, EPE, to promote harmony in terms of institutional delivery? Next slide. What is the implementing arm of the Ministry of Sanitation for WASH services delivery? We have advocated for the National Sanitation Authority below the national level. Ministry of Sanitation is the policy arm. If we were to have below National Sanitation Authority, just like many state agencies has authority, then that authority can have very clear defined relationship with institutions such as Institute of Engineers and what have you, and work closely with local government ministry to ensure that all the good intentions of coordination are promoted for effective and sustainable service delivery. And that has been hanging over the years. We think that come next year, in terms of institutional arrangement, National Sanitation Authority should be on the front burner. If we are not able to get it before December, it should be crucial next step come next year. Next slide. The water policy, which has just been launched by the ministry quite recently, has very good intentions for climate change. But it has also been asking critical questions about how they can relate. And our proposal is that with these good intentions in the water policy, we still need a very clear institutional arrangement. I won't spend time because previous speakers have already touched on these intentions coming from the new water policy. Next slide. And so from the water policy itself, it has mentioned limited institutional capacity and collaboration to analyze, interpret, and communicate drought and flood information to end users, which is crucial to stemming the tide of climate resilient wash services. Next slide. We are also saying that for SDG 6, to be able to achieve it, it is crucial we relook at our institutional arrangement. And I think a lot has been said also about the need to achieve all the SDGs, but without paying attention to WASH, we can forget about SDG 1 on ending hunger. We can forget about SDG 2 on poverty, SDG 1 poverty, SDG 2 hunger, SDG 3 good health, up to SDG 11, which talks about cities, and then SDG 13 on climate change. Because WASH is central to everything about all the SDGs. So there's a need to pay critical attention to the overarching role of WASH. But the role of the youth is also crucial. The youth have freshness, they have innovation, they have the drive. So central to all our activities, we should also ensure that we prioritize the youth involvement in climate resilient wash services, because they have a lot to also contribute to give us this attention. And there is the urgent need for all of us to be on board to promote multi-sector coordination to ensure climate resilient wash services are delivered within a coherent institutional arrangement. Thank you very much. I think I'll end here.